Known for fearlessly teaching courses that explore topics that students deeply care about. She's also known for spreading joy and delight, whether that's by bringing a talking Moses doll to class when covering the 10 Commandments, or occasionally allowing her students to imitate her on the last day of the semester. Some of your students are here, sorry for leaking that. Or whether it's spreading care around the 4th floor of Boyle with birthday door decks and a reliable source of smoked almonds always at the ready. It's also my privilege to know Bridget as a dear friend, as a teammate in scholarship and writing, and as an incredibly talented, patient, and ultimately forgiving of me, euchre partner. Right, Johnny What's-Trom? Yeah. So will you please join me in welcoming Dr. Bridget Burke Ravizza.
Thank you. It's great to see so many friendly faces out there. I want to start by thanking Laura Neary, who kindly switched her date with mine because my dad passed away over spring break, and I was originally meant to do my last lecture on the 1st, but she kindly switched this date, so I'm thankful for that. Thanks, Laura. So these are my parents. Tom and Barbara Burke. And during a visit at Christmas this past year, my nephew Brendan asked my mom, "Grandma, how do you want to be remembered when you die?" And my mom answered, "I want to be remembered as a person who loves without hesitation." Brendan was so struck by that response that he told me about their conversation. I too am moved by my mom's answer. I find it to be wise in all of the right ways. The story got me thinking about all of the wise things that I learned from my parents growing up. I decided to focus this last lecture on 7 sayings that were repeated again and again in my house growing up with the hope that there's wisdom to be shared. The first is, remember who you are and where you come from. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister, and this saying was something that our parents often reminded us as we left the house. We needed the reminder, especially as we grew older and had more freedom. We could drive around, we didn't have our parents with us all the time, and we had all sorts of opportunities to get in trouble. I can picture my older brothers as teenagers walking out of the house and my mom calling out as the screen door shut, "Remember who you are and where you come from." As kids, we were well aware of where we come from. My mom is one of 19 children, raised in Austin, Minnesota. My grandma and grandpa, Nick and Margaret Wagner, in addition to their 19 children, had 89 grandchildren. And that number does not include great-grandchildren. Each summer, for 44 years and counting, the extended Wagner family gathers for a reunion called the Wagner Open. Whoever is able to get together gathers for a weekend to play golf, eat, drink, tell stories, and laugh. A different family hosts it each year, so things get changed up, but some traditions are constant. After golfing, we always have a family mass, followed by a dinner dance, the highlight of which is an awards ceremony where the winners of the previous year's golf tournament present my Grandpa Wagner's coat and my Grandma Wagner's mink stole to the new winners with bragging rights. I may or may not have been champion a couple years ago. At some point in the night, someone leads us in our family theme song, which is set to the tune of Roll Out the Barrel. We are the Wagners, we are a barrel of fun. Okay, I'll stop with just one line. Even though my family lived in California, we came back to the Midwest just about every year for the Wagner Open. which was and is an opportunity to get to know and to celebrate one another across generations, including loved ones that we've lost. The reunions kept us connected with each other and rooted in the faith that my grandparents handed on. On the other side of the family, we have the Burkes. My dad grew up South Side Chicago Irish. Mary Ann and Tom Burke both came from County Mayo, Ireland, when they were teenagers. This is a picture of my great-grandparents, both sets, in County Mayo, Ireland. See the sweet ZZ Top beard on my great-grandpa Burke, which apparently was red. Awesome. So my grandparents didn't know each other in Ireland, but they met in this country at a church dance. I admire the courage that it took for them to sail away, not knowing whether they'd ever see their parents or their home again, hoping to build a life across the ocean. And indeed they did. Grandma and Grandpa Burke got married and had 4 children, the youngest of whom is my dad, little Tommy, who, by the way, for most of his life, no one could be accusing him of being little. When I was 4, my grandma Burke died. We were living in San Diego, and my grandpa, who we called Gramps, moved in with us. And I consider this one of the great blessings of my life, to have lived with Gramps into his late 80s, daily gifted by his stories of the old country, his constant jokes, and the Irish music that he played on his cassette tapes. In addition, Gramps gifted me with his quiet faith. I can hear him telling me to say my prayers at night, and I remember walking arm in arm with him slowly, very slowly, up to communion each week. I can still feel his soft hand covering my hand and squeezing while we sat together in the pew. Catholicism via Gramps, unassuming, deep, warm, and sincere. Yes, we knew as kids where we came from. So when my parents called out, "Remember who you are and where you come from," it really meant something. We understood that they were asking us to honor our family by the way that we lived our lives. They were saying, "Make us proud." And the us included not only my parents, but my grandparents and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and siblings. They were asking us to keep in mind the values passed down to us through generations, traditions, and rituals, both at home and at church. Our big family and our Catholicism gave us an identity, gave us roots, and also gave us ideals to strive for as we walked out the door and into the world. By the way, I recently came across some research indicating that children who know their history and their family stories are better able to deal with difficulty and to readjust following tragedy. Knowing they belong to something bigger and that family members who have gone before them have struggled and come through successfully helps them to have confidence and to negotiate their own way. Saying number 2 is, "Come in, what can I get you?" People found welcome at the Burke House. Whether folks were expected or they came unannounced, we were glad to see them, and we asked them to come on in. As soon as a guest sat down, my mom was famous for asking, "What can I get you?" She began running through a thorough list of the drink options that we had in the house. "Can I get you a Coke? Diet Coke? Sprite? How about a glass of ice water? Or we have ice cold milk. How about some orange juice?" For the adult crowd, the list would include booze. My mom would not take no for an answer. The list would continue, and if nothing had been accepted, she'd soon begin repeating the options. "Are you sure you wouldn't like a Coke?" And next she'd have the refrigerator door open to see what else she might offer. "We had lasagna for dinner. Can I heat some up for you?" Or how about some cheese and crackers? No thanks, Mrs. Burke. I already ate dinner. Well, then how about some ice cream? I'll scoop some up for you. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. She was relentless. And our friends soon learned that even if they were not thirsty or hungry, they should just accept something because it was the only way to get my mom to stop. What's interesting is that my mom never paid attention to whether or not a person actually ate or drank what they were given. She just wanted them to take something. Of course, this was her way of saying, welcome. Let me make you feel at home. What we have is for you to share. When a guest was given food and drink, it invited them to stay and relax for a while. This, in turn, gave my mom the opportunity to find out how things were going for our friends, what was new in their lives, and how their families were. Whoever it was, she peppered them with questions, and she got the lowdown. She cared to know them, and they knew it. When Carrie Newcomer was here on campus and sang her song, Betty's Diner, it reminded me of my mom. This song is about a waitress ready to serve the motley crew gathered at the diner. And the lyrics say, let her fill your cup with something kind. Eggs and toast like bread and wine. She's heard it all, so she don't mind. Whatever my mom was serving at our house, eggs and toast, cheese and crackers, Coke, or a cold beer, she was serving kindness and listening intently to the one that she served. It was like bread and wine. It was her way of saying, you matter to us. You belong here. We want to know you, and we want to feed you with love. In turn, our friends loved to come over. Our house was often filled with people. On a Saturday or Sunday morning, you never knew what family friends you'd find asleep downstairs on the couch or maybe even on the floor of our big family room. One of my favorite stories is when our beloved dog Fetcher was hit by a car and had to be put down. Don't worry, it gets better. That's a weird favorite story. The family was gathered in the kitchen, which was in the center of the house. Tears were being shed and hugs shared. A teenage boy came to the door and was welcomed in. My mom found him a place at the bar that ran alongside the kitchen. She asked him to excuse the tears, and she explained about the dog. After a while, someone asked him who he was and who he was there to see. He replied that he was there to pick up Dawn. Well, unfortunately for him, Dawn lived several houses down the street, okay, and the traumatized boy had to be pointed down that way. I love that story because it typifies what the Burke house was like. People in and out, and even in the worst of times, if someone showed up at the door, even if no one recognized them, they would be let in, and they'd be brought to the heart of the home and into the center of whatever was happening with the family, good or bad. Hospitality was sincere. It certainly wasn't about a desire to appear perfect. Both of my parents were good at being hospitable. While growing up, we had several people live at our house for extended time periods, for months and even years, when they were in need. Gramps, my Uncle Mike, my cousin Kevin, my cousin Jane. Several of my brother Pat's children moved in with my parents during their middle and high school years. In addition to these extended house guests, whoever did not have a place to go for the holidays was invited to our house. To be honest, my sister and I were sometimes openly resistant to this. Maybe a better way to say that is we were kind of bratty about it. Mom, why does so-and-so have to come over? It's gonna ruin Christmas. But my mother always insisted, we make a place for people who don't have another place to go. Period. Stop your whining. I remember one conversation when I was in grade school about a birthday party that I was planning, and there were a couple girls that I just didn't want to invite. My mom asked me, "Bridget, what would Jesus do?" Rolling my eyes, "I don't know, Mom, did Jesus have birthday parties?" But actually, I did know. I knew exactly what she meant by that question. Jesus would choose to include. Jesus would not leave anybody out. And so I invited the girls, and I knew it was the right thing to do, and it all turned out fine. By the way, my mom was using that "what would Jesus do" line on us way before those bracelets became popular. In the Burke house, we learned the importance of keeping an open door and providing warm welcome, especially for someone in need. My husband's family was the same way. Their house had a revolving door for folks who needed a place to stay. Relatives and friends also lived at their house for months and years at a time. I think one time we counted 8 different people who had lived temporarily at their house. So I'm grateful that John's parents also had a "come in, what can I get you" policy, because when my brother's 2 youngest children needed somewhere to live, John did not hesitate to take them in. He parented them. He parented them for 12 years. And it's one of the many, many reasons that I love and admire him, and also his parents for raising him. Saying number 3, if you're bored, you're boring. Okay. This line was the standard response to any complaint about boredom, no matter where we were. At home, on a car ride, in line, at a store. Our parents held us responsible for entertaining ourselves and making our own fun. If we were solo, we'd have to find a book, write a story, play solitaire, ride our bike, maybe watch some TV, or if we were out, we'd people watch and think up interesting stories about the people that we saw. This activity admittedly was more fun with another person. If we were together, the "if you're bored, you're boring" response, admittedly after some initial irritation, prompted us to be active and use our imagination in thousands of ways. I think this line is genius. First, it prompts creativity. Nothing to do? Why not build a fort? Or put on a play with the neighbors? Or put on the Donnie and Marie Osmond album and dance around the living room? Second, it implies that life is not about being passively entertained all the time. It's about filling your time meaningfully. There's goodness in quiet, in reading, in writing, in contemplating, in praying, in having face-to-face conversation, in thinking. It encourages the development of an inner life. Third, it calls us to appreciate what is good and beautiful around us. In essence, it says, who are you to be bored? Open your eyes, look around at the created world, be grateful for God's sake. In any case, I credit this line, at least in part, for the fact that as kids, my sister and I could laugh and have fun anywhere, and we still can. We didn't need to be doing anything. I'm thankful, too, that not being boring was modeled for us. The Wagners, for example, are well known for dressing up for a laugh. I recall being in the Midwest one summer as a kid when all of my aunts dressed up in various costumes just to go out for the afternoon. My Aunt Rose dressed up in a policewoman's outfit, and at one point, honestly, went into the street to direct traffic with her whistle. Another aunt the same day hopped on someone's Harley that was parked outside of the liquor store just for laughs. By the way, that did not go over very well with the owner of the bike. My aunts sing and dance around for no reason on the street or in the grocery store, and I used to be horrified when my mom behaved this way in public. Now when my teenage daughter says I'm embarrassing her, I tell her, that's my job and I learn from the best. My dad's favorite line when my mom dresses up or sings and dances was, don't encourage her. Which of course did encourage her and just made her step it up a notch. When my friends used to come over to our house to play cards or board games, they'd first be sent to the hall closet to select a hat to be worn while playing. Why, you ask? Why the hell not? Playing cards is definitely more fun with a hat on. And so I learned from fun-making experts that if you're bored, you're boring, and that's the truth. Saying number 4, if you can laugh, you can cry. And its partner saying, offer it up. Poet Mary Oliver has a lovely short poem that captures what it means to be human. We shake with joy, we shake with grief. What a time they have, these two housed as they are in the same body. As much fun as we had in our house, we also suffered our share of grief. Some of my grief was tied to perils that typically accompany childhood and adolescence, which nevertheless are felt deeply. The teasing, the feeling like you're not quite good enough. My white skin and freckly face was not the norm in a Southern California beach culture. I certainly felt it, and people often reminded me of it, calling me shark bait or asking, oh, can I connect the dots on your face? Okay. No. Okay. Or worse. I can laugh now, but I spent years wishing I had a different body in order to fit in. Still, my dad, God bless him, insistently told me and my sister, you girls were always beautiful. And now I believe him. We also shared more profound suffering in my family. With a family as big as ours is, we experienced our share of sickness and death. We also suffered the pain of addiction in our family. If any of you has addiction in your family, you know how insidious and destructive it can be through the years, how much it colors what ought to be happy occasions, and how much it undermines relationships. And how loving a person who suffers from addiction demands courage and involves heartbreak. Of course, none of us is perfect, none of our families is perfect, and none of us escape suffering, no matter how it shows itself. One of my mom's favorite lines in the midst of suffering was, if you can laugh, you can cry. And I'm thankful for these words of affirmation. It made us not ashamed to cry, to openly express our sadness or frustration or disappointment. We learned what Oliver expresses. Just as deep joy is a part of life, so is deep grief. And feeling it all is what we do on this side of the grave. But what I learned from my parents is that we don't need to bear it alone. When we express our sorrow to those we love and who love us, we are able to share it together, and somehow it is made more bearable. In our house, the partner phrase to, if you can laugh, you can cry, was, offer it up. Maybe you heard this one repeated in your own houses. Because I was taught this, when circumstances are crushing my spirit, I try to pray about it. What is painful and outside of my control, I try to give to God and keep moving forward. I have confidence that I don't have to bear my sorrows alone. I take hope from the core of my faith. The cross is not the end of the story. It's a very real part of the story, and it hurts. But the resurrection is the end of the story. Saying number 5, Don't do anything half-ass. This one is self-explanatory, so I'll just give a quick illustration. If one of us kids had cleaned the kitchen after dinner, and we went upstairs without wiping down the counters or washing out the sink, God forbid, we'd hear our dad's voice calling up to us, "Bridget, get back down here." And we'd be told, "You did a really half-assed job on this kitchen. Finish it up." We were taught that every job we did should be done right, or else what's the point of doing it? When you take on any task, take the time to complete it the best that you can. Do work that you can be proud of. Set high standards and go about meeting them. Don't do anything half-ass. Saying number 6, Mr. Wonderful, that's you. This one worked to keep us humble. Here's how. If any family member was seeking praise or congratulations for something that they'd done, "Oh, did you notice that good thing that I did?" We'd say, "Oh, fishing for the compliments." Okay. Someone else, usually my mom, would start singing a song that others would quickly join in. "Mr. Wonderful, that's you." Okay. Or its counterpart, "Mrs. Wonderful, that's you." Okay, we did a lot of teasing in my house, and this was a favorite. It might seem kind of harsh. I know the thing is to increasingly shower praise upon kids. But I actually really appreciate this loving reminder that when we do something well, as we should, rather than half-ass, that ought to be a reward in itself. We shouldn't need praise for every good work, although sometimes it is nice to be recognized and celebrated, and our parents certainly did that too. The last one is, God bless you. So when we were kids, before we went to bed at night, my mom would give us a kiss and make the sign of the cross on our forehead, and so we went to bed blessed. We do that now in our own house, and our daughter blesses us in this way too. Until the day that he died, each time I talked to my dad on the phone, after saying goodbye, he would say, "God bless you." This may be the most important lesson that I've learned from my parents. Our job in this life is to bless one another. Moments when we mark this blessing with our hands or with our words are important. But more important are the myriad ways we care for one another, the ways that we daily attempt to love one another unreservedly. Loving one another without hesitation ought to be the goal of all of our lives. How might we become blessings to one another with our very lives? It's a question worth asking, and asking again and again. So let me end with an Irish blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of God's hand. Thank you, and God bless you.